Goodneighbor, a town of crime and vice, frequented by drifters, chem addicts, and criminals, and yet paradoxically, one of the last bastions of freedom in the Commonwealth. According to the Fallout 4 Survival Guide, Goodneighbor was founded in the year 2240 by criminals who had been exiled from Diamond City. That's 47 years before the events of Fallout 4, making Goodneighbor one of the older permanent settlements in the Commonwealth, but not quite as old as Diamond City. Diamond City is about 150 years old by the events of Fallout 4, making it around 110 years older than Goodneighbor. Goodneighbor is built on the site of real-world Scully Square. It was a vibrant commercial center, populated by many shops and businesses, with people walking the streets to attend church, go to shows, and to trade. However, by the 1940s, commercial activity moved out of Scully Square, and the square began to decline. The low point came when the Howard Theater in the square began to put on burlesque shows, and the square began to attract the more seedy residents of Boston. The old Howard Theater was eventually shut down by the Boston Vice Squad, and the entire square was demolished around 1962. It was replaced by the hideous and grotesque concrete monstrosity which is still there today, called Government Center. At the time, it was hailed as progress, getting rid of the old and building the new, but the old vibrant culture that was there in Scully Square is now the home of government buildings, corporate offices, gray concrete, and brutalist architecture. Thankfully, Scully Square lives on in the Fallout universe. Now, the one item to Goodneighbor that still exists in our world is the old State House. Even the insane people who demolished Scully Square back in the 60s recognized the importance of the old State House as being an important landmark of American freedom. It was from the balcony here at the old State House that on July 18th, 1776, the Declaration of Independence was first publicly proclaimed. However, one of the reasons the old State House may have been spared is because it's actually quite a ways from Scully Square. Here's a map of downtown Boston. You can see the old State House with the red marker on top of it, and heading north we see Government Center. This is the concrete and brick wasteland that has replaced Scully Square. This is where the square used to be. Here's an old image of Scully Square taken in 1957. Let's orient ourselves. In the lower right-hand corner of the image, we find Faneuil Hall. This is where we find the golden grasshopper, both in the game and in real life. The golden grasshopper is a weather vane on the real Faneuil Hall, and just outside the hall is the statue of Samuel Adams. Just up the road is the historic downtown of Scully Square. We can see the outside of the Scully Square Theater, formerly known as the Olympia Theater, which is where we find the Memory Den in Fallout 4. In this image, the familiar marquee of the Olympia Theater is gone. That was removed from the theater long before it was demolished. Now in Fallout 4, the old State House is just across the street. However, in the real world, back in 1957, to find the old State House, we had to go down, 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 and all the way to the left. This is the old State House, which thankfully survived the destruction of Scully Square and can be explored today. However, in the Fallout universe, the old State House is much closer to Scully Square, and this acts as a town hall. It's where the mayor of Goodneighbor lives, and it acts as a home for many drifters. We know that this is the old State House because just outside Goodneighbor, we find a plaque on the side of the old State House that says as much. It gives us a brief history. Built in 1713, where John Adams said the child independence was born, and the site of the Boston Massacre. In the middle of the old State House is a large spiral staircase, and this is what we find inside the real old State House in our world. The spiral staircase was built by a man named Isaiah Rogers in 1830. This was not part of the original building, the one that Samuel Adams might have known, but Isaiah Rogers wanted to add a little bit of Greek revival style to the building, and so added this spiral staircase, which still exists to this day. In Fallout 4, Mayor Hancock and his bodyguard Fahrenheit occupy one of the larger rooms on the second floor.
Tell me more about this town of yours, Goodneighbor.
It's all about the people, understand? They're freaks, misfits, and troublemakers, and that's why I love them. Everyone here lives their own life, their own way. No judgments. Now,
this is where they lounge around and take their chems. Here in Hancock's office, we find his terminal. Stay free, Hancock. stay free. Here, the ghoul lists the taxes that he collects, which he refers to as monthly collections. It looks like Hancock collects a percentage of the business that the shops in Goodneighbor get. The biggest chunk of change comes from the third rail. Hancock collects 1,000 caps a month. The third rail is clearly the most popular attraction in Goodneighbor. The Hotel Rexford, on the other hand, only gives Hancock about 100 caps a month. Morawski ain't what he used to be, says Hancock. Remember, Morawski was a chem dealer. Business has gone south for him. Cleo's weapon shop, Killer Be Killed, is the second best shop in the town. He collects 550 caps from the place, and Hancock says Cleo is good at the sexy and scary routine. I can relate. Daisy comes in third with 480 caps per month. Good old Daisy, she can buy and sell anything. We also learned that Hancock takes his role as mayor of Goodneighbor seriously. Remember, he put together the Neighborhood Watch program. The Neighborhood Watch are the guards that we find wandering the streets of Goodneighbor with their submachine guns drawn. They are the only police force, for lack of a better word, that Goodneighbor has. It's likely that the taxes Hancock collects are used to fund the Neighborhood Watch and collect intel, keeping the men with upgraded weapons and bribing spies. Hancock is concerned about gunner activity around a nearby quarry. He must be referring to the Quincy Quarry. The Quincy Quarry is filled with raiders, but gunners recently took over the town of Quincy, which is near the quarry. Hancock got word that Nick Valentine has gone missing and correctly deduced that Skinny Malone was involved. However, he's sure that the synth has not been assassinated. He says Valentine is more resourceful than that. And if you check this terminal after the Brotherhood of Steel arrives, Hancock expresses his concern. I need to get some eyes there, he says. We can't afford not to know their plans. Hancock is an extremely popular mayor, but he wasn't always mayor of Goodneighbor. Hancock tells us that before him, Goodneighbor suffered under an abusive ruler named Vic.
Some ass named Vic ran the town for I don't know how long before that. Guy was scum. Used us drifters like his own personal piggy bank. He had this goon squad he'd use to keep people in line. Every so often he'd let them off the leash, go blow off some steam on the populace at large. Folks with homes could lock their doors, but us drifters, we got it bad. There was one night, some drifter said something to them. They cracked him open like a can of cram on the pavement, and we all just stood there, did nothing. I felt like less than nothing. Afterwards, I got so high, I blacked out completely. When I finally came to, I was on the floor of the old state house, right in front of the clothes of John Hancock. John Hancock, first American hoodlum and defender of the people. I might have still been high, but those clothes spoke to me, told me what I needed to do. I smashed the case, put him on, started a new life as Hancock. After that, I went clean for a bit. Got organized, convinced Cleo to loan me some hardware, got a crew of drifters together and headed out into the ruins, started training. Next time Vic's boys went on their tear, we'd be ready for 'em. So the night of, we all got loaded, let Vic's boys get good and hammered, and burst from the windows and rooftops where we'd been hiding. They never even saw it coming. We didn't have to fire a shot. We didn't have to, but we sure fucking did. It was a massacre. Once we'd mopped up, we strolled right into Vic's quarters in the state house, wrapped a rope around his neck, and threw him off the balcony. And there I am, gun in hand, draped in Hancock's duds, looking at all the people of Goodneighbor assembled below. I had to say something. That first time I said them, they didn't even feel like my words. Of the people, for the people, was my inaugural address. Became Mayor Hancock of Goodneighbor that day. And from then on, I vowed I'd never stand by and watch. Ever again.
Hancock was a drifter seeking refuge in Goodneighbor because he left Diamond City after Diamond City kicked out all of the ghouls. But we'll get into that story when we do Hancock's profile. In the real world, the old state house was used as a seat of government for many years until around 1830. By then, the state government had moved to the Massachusetts State House, leaving the old state house vacant. For the next 11 years or so, it worked as a post office and as an office space for a few private businesses. Then between 1841 in 1881, it became a commercial center, with as many as 50 different businesses operating inside of it. Similarly, in the Fallout 4 world, Hancock doesn't keep the old State House just for himself. I think that would probably go against his principles. Instead, he allows drifters to come inside and even sleep there. It's not just the seat of town government, but also a home for people who have no home. A safe place to sleep and shoot up chems for people at the lowest points of their lives. Like the real old State House, the one in Fallout 4 has a balcony overlooking the street outside. It's from this balcony that Colonel Thomas Crafts recited the Declaration of Independence on July 18th, 1776 to a cheering crowd of Bostonians. Remember, this was also the site of the Boston Massacre, which happened just a few years before. No wonder 6 years later the residents of Boston's cheered in the street to hear a Declaration of Independence from British tyranny read from the balcony of this building. Bethesda gives an homage to this moment when we first enter the town. After Hancock puts down another potential wannabe tyrant named Finn, he ascends the balcony and addresses the entire town of Goodneighbor.
Hey everyone, gather around. Let's kick the breeze back. Shoot the fat. Now I know you all are doing your own thing, but I don't want anyone here to forget what matters. Hey, Daisy, glad you could make it. How's my favorite girl doing? Didn't I see you on a date with Morowski the other day?
He wishes.
All right, we're getting off track. What was I saying? Oh, that's right, what matters. We freaks gotta stick together. And the best way to stick together is to keep an eye out for what drives us apart. You feel me?
Yeah, you tell it like it is, Hancock.
Now, what out there in our big friendly Commonwealth would want to drive us apart? What kind of twisted, unneighborly boogeyman would want to hurt our peaceful community?
The Institute and their sense.
That's right. Who said that? Coming up to my office later, you've earned yourself some jet. The Institute. They're the real enemy. Not the Raiders. Not the super mutants. Not even those tools over in Diamond City.
I don't know, Hancock. I'd sure love to give McDonough a kick in the ass.
Hey, we all know I got my own personal beef with that lardhead. But stay focused. Now, I want everyone to keep the Institute in mind. When someone starts acting funny. When people are doing things they don't normally do. When family starts pushing you away for no reason. We all know who's behind that kind of shit. And the only way to stop it is to stick together. They can't control us if we're not afraid. Now, who's scared of the Institute?
Not us.
And which town in the Commonwealth should the Institute not fuck with?
Goodneighbor.
And who's in charge of Goodneighbor?
Hancock.
Of the people, for the people.
The entrance to the third rail is built into the side of the old State House and leads you underneath it, bringing you to Scollay Square Metro Station. In real life, there is actually a metro station underneath the old State House. However, it's called the State Street Station, serving the orange and blue lines. However, since the old State House is not in Scollay Square, the State Street subway station was not in Scollay Square either. Instead, Scollay Square had a better known and much more beautiful subway station called the Scollay Square Station. This was a unique metro station that had an entrance between where two different roads joined. The metro station was closed but reopened as the government center station after Scollay Square was destroyed. In Fallout 4, Bethesda conflates the Scollay Square Station with the State Street Station to create the third rail beneath the old State House. You can find out more information about the third rail in the dedicated video I made about it. We find the neighborhood watch wandering every street in Goodneighbor.
I heard you walk that Freedom Trail. What, you some kind of, what do they call it? History buff?
What, got a staring problem? Keep your nose out of my business.
You know who kicked the ghouls out of Diamond City, right? That blowhard Mayor McDonough. He'll get his one day. You watch. Trying to stay on good behavior here. Don't make me do something I'll regret. Oh, geez, you ain't one of them Diamond City types, are you?
However, it's confusing as to what their purpose actually is. The Neighborhood Watch is not there when you're accosted by Finn upon first entering the town. It's Hancock himself that intervenes and puts Finn in his place. Neighborhood Watch also does not intervene when triggermen murder a drifter in one of the Goodneighbor alleyways. However, the Neighborhood Watch do kill synth doppelgangers on sight. One of the first scenes we find upon entering Goodneighbor is that of two neighborhood watchmen standing over the body of a dead synth.
Can't believe it. He looked just like Sammy, too.
He sure as hell didn't act like him. Institute thinks they can replace people with synths in this town? They got another thing coming.
What am I gonna tell his mother?
This is a striking contrast to one of the first scenes we see in Diamond City. In that scene, two brothers are in conflict, one with a gun drawn on the other. He thinks that his brother might be a synth, but this paranoia is not tolerated by the Diamond City guards, who kill the man. The Neighborhood Watch and Goodneighbor, however, seem to be better at detecting who is and is not a synth. The guards talk about being able to notice that he had different behavior than the original man, which is why they shot him.
I want those synth makers to know that Goodneighbor is off limits. No one gets replaced in my town. Just to be clear, everyone's welcome in Goodneighbor. I don't care if you're a synth, ghoul, or even a super mutant, so long as you play nice. And let me tell you, synths still under the Institute's control don't play nice.
They ended up being right. You do find a synth component on his corpse, but it seems like the Neighborhood Watch guards have embraced the shoot first, ask questions later viewpoint on life. It may, however, be exactly what this town needs. After all, Diamond City has been infiltrated by the Institute. We know of at least one synth spy there, and synth birds. But Goodneighbor remains free of the Institute, so free that the railroad is free to work here. We learned that from Deacon upon visiting the town with him.
Hancock turns a blind eye to our activities. Makes Goodneighbor a great place to lay low.
The body of this dead synth lies in the middle of the street, right next to some shanties the drifters have set up. Here, the drifters will make chems from a chemistry station, cook their food, and sleep in the streets. This is also right outside the Hotel Rexford. The Hotel Rexford is actually named after a real Hotel Rexford that was just outside Scollay Square. Here we see an old map that the Hotel Rexford would give out, and the hotel is actually a bit of a walk away from the center of Scollay Square. The one image I could find depicting the real-life Hotel Rexford brags about a new elevator service, how the place was warmed with steam heat, and each floor had 6 baths. Not one for every room, mind you, but each floor would share up to 6 baths. Next door, the Memory Den inhabits the old Olympia Theater. I went into great detail about what this place looked like in real life before it was destroyed in my video on the Memory Den, which I published yesterday. You can watch that video here. I also did a video on Bobby No-Nos. We find her house at the end of a dark alleyway. She approaches you to help her with a job. She's a schemer, and she has a personal beef with Mayor Hancock. She's jealous of the man, even though Hancock brought her into Goodneighbor and gave her a place to stay. She resents the authority he has in town, but more than anything, she hates how everyone seems to love him. Aside from the merchants and the Hotel Rexford, which I covered in my video on the topic, the only other 2 merchants we find in the town are near the entrance. To the left is Killer Be Killed, a weapons shop run by an assaultron named Cleo.
Well, hello. Everything here is guaranteed to injure, maim, or kill at your discretion. Except me. I only kill when I want to.
What are you?
I'm a woman, baby. Can't you tell?
You're not a woman. I think I would know.
Trust me, babe. The way the men around here treat me, I qualify. Why do you think I stock so many dangerous weapons?
There's something a bit off.
Must be the fumes from all these deadly instruments I'm selling.
You certainly look like a woman. Yes.
And that's all that matters, right?
Oh, of course you are. It's just all those metal plates. You're a robot, right? A very womanly robot.
Designation, Assaultron. Designed to provide a variety of security-related tasks to the modern man. Runtime conclusion. Why work for the man when you can work for yourself? New designation, KLEO. Cleo. Fully independent small business owner. Robot enough for you, smooth talker?
You're an assaultron?
That's what my makers called me. But as far as I'm concerned, I'm a woman. And I run a store that sells very large guns.
So what kinds of weapons do you have?
Anything that can kill a man, I sell. Except suicidal depression. That is unfortunately not packageable. Murder and mayhem at a discount.
On Cleo's inventory, we find the unique missile launcher, Party Starter, which has the Assassin's legendary effect, doing 50% more damage to humans. Going into Cleo's house, we can head upstairs to find Cleo's terminal. It looks like she's been programmed to come up with contingency plans. The terminal says, have a plan to kill everyone you meet. To kill Daisy, she would assassinate her with a laser at long range. She prefers a sniper approach to avoid any suspicion. After all, Daisy is so close, naturally Cleo may be a primary suspect. To kill Hancock, she would first have to kill Fahrenheit, and she prefers to do so by strangulation while Fahrenheit sleeps. Then to kill Hancock, she would load all doses of chems in the old state house with poisons. Apparently Hancock is well known for his chem habit, and it's a method of assassination that would likely work. Collateral damage is possible, she says, but losses are acceptable, without too much disruption to business. She even has a contingency plan for the neighborhood watch. She would use a super mutant or raider attack as cover to detonate high explosives in key defensive areas throughout the town. The neighborhood watch would likely be in those areas, and she would quickly wipe them out. However, she admits that if she killed the neighborhood watch, she would have to relocate, as Goodneighbor would be left vulnerable. Her contingency plan for killing Bobby is to wait until nightfall, sneak into Bobby's hideout, dismantle the lights, and then kill Bobby and all of her workers one by one in the darkness. Her plan to kill Whitechapel Charlie is easy. She's just gonna pay off one of his associates. Whitechapel must work with a lot of unscrupulous triggermen. And her contingency plan for Magnolia is funny. She doesn't want to kill Magnolia. She sees Magnolia as a fellow working girl who deserves a chance. And her solution then would be to burn down the third rail as a warning. But if she resists after that, she'll get a clean shot to the head. Charming, Cleo, charming. The last person to meet in Goodneighbor is Daisy. She's a general merchant selling a wide range of goods, and upon meeting her, she gives you her brief history.
Oh, new face walks into my store, and you're not even screaming yet. Very polite. You let me know if anything catches your fancy.
Did you say something about people screaming at you?
That's right. Some newcomers have never seen a ghoul before. Can't handle a friendly face, I say.
Ghoul? What's a ghoul?
You're looking at one, sweetheart. Didn't have any shelter to go to when the bombs fell. Radiation's kind of the ultimate makeover. Done wonders for my skin. I look pretty good for being 220 years old.
Wait, you're 220 years old.
Okay. It's more like 270 years. But don't go blabbing that to everyone. Being a ghoul means you live a long time. You stop counting birthdays. Do you know what it's like being that old?
What's it like?
It's like being in a time warp sometimes. Hundreds of years between you and the 20-somethings running around here. Not that you'd know what that's like, would you?
Can't imagine.
Well, it's not as bad as you'd think. A lot of the younger toughs leave me alone. Guess anyone who's lived as long as I have has gotta be at least a bit dangerous.
More than you might think.
Well, now you're just making fun of me. If you were as old as I was, you would have been around since before the war. So let's hear it. Come on. Tell me what the world was like before the war if you're so ancient.
What do you remember?
Oh no, that's cheating. You first.
The world before was nothing but petty governments going to war, dragging us into it, and shooting whoever refused to clean up the mess.
You know, I had a husband that was killed in the war with the Reds. They didn't even tell me where he died. Classified information and all that.
So, what do you remember about the past?
Oh, sweetie, I was an angry young woman back then. Thought the world was sick and wouldn't give me my due. Then it all ended, and well, I ended in a way, becoming a ghoul. Maybe when you get to be my age, everything starts to look like fate.
I had a beautiful house. White picket fence and a lawn with the greenest grass you've ever seen. It was peaceful.
It was, wasn't it? Sorry. Last thing you want to see is an old lady tearing up. Anyway, I like your story better, whether or not it's true.
Being over 200 years old, she thinks back on her memories with fondness, although in order to survive over the years, we're given the impression that Daisy resorted to darker things. Irma's terminal in the memory den says that she's scared of Daisy after seeing some of her memories. But one of her most cherished memories is going to the Boston Public Library as a child.
Super mutants have taken over the old Boston Public Library. I got a lot of fond memories of that place from when I was a girl and human.
Daisy will give you a quest to head over to the Boston Public Library, which I covered in detail in my video on the Boston Public Library. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a full history of the town of Goodneighbor. Founded in 2240 by criminals, today a haven of crime and chem abuse, but also of freedom. Led by the charismatic ghoul Hancock, who gladly gives shelter to ghouls, drifters, and other rejects. The town is drenched in a lot of real-world history, making it a fascinating topic to study. What are your thoughts on Goodneighbor, folks? Did you like the place, or, like the residents of Diamond City, do you think it is too seedy and corrupt for your taste? Let me know in the comments below. I had a whole lot of fun doing research for this video and putting it together. I'm going to be doing the same thing to many more places in Fallout 4 as I have already, and if you want to make sure that you don't miss those videos, be sure to subscribe and click that bell notification button. And did you know that I have my own t-shirt shop? That's right, I've worked with the fine folks over at Teespring to design some Fallout 4 and Oxhorn themed shirts, complete with your favorite factions and quotes. If you're interested, you can find a link to my shop in the description below. And if you like what I do and you want to support me in a more personal way, consider becoming one of my patrons on Patreon. Patreon subscribers get access to a private channel on my Discord server, as well as a bunch of other cool Oxhorn perks. But more than anything, ladies and gentlemen, I'm just so glad you're here watching this video with me today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow morning, bright and early, with a brand new video.